The roar of 5,000 people turned to a vacuum in 1 second. She opened her mouth to sing, the same mouth that made the world weep with joy. And nothing came out. Not a note, not a whisper. Just the sound of a 16-year-old girl disappearing in real time. You remember the audition, the dancing, the shock. But you don't know what happened the moment the cameras stopped rolling. You don't know about the contract that silence are faster than any fear of the stage. And when the full truth is revealed, nothing will ever look the same. The roar of 5,000 people turned to a vacuum in 1 second. It was June 12, 2018. The Pasadena Civic Auditorium. Judge cuts week on America's Got Talent. A 13-year-old girl in a baggy hoodie walked to center stage looking like she'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Hands shaking, eyes fixed on the floor. The kind of nervous that makes audiences feel sorry for you. Then the music started, and the girl vanished. In her place stood something else entirely, a creature from another century. Her body snapped into a rhythm that didn't belong to a teenager from Heselden, England. Her voice, that rasp, that growl, that soul, filled the room like smoke. She was singing Otis Redding's Hard to Handle, but she wasn't covering it. She was possessing it. Howard Stern hit the golden buzzer before she finished the second chorus. Gold confetti exploded. The audience rose to its feet. Simon Cowell sat frozen, mouth slightly open, the way a hunter looks at a unicorn. Backstage, her father cried. Her mother hugged strangers. And Courtney Hadwin? She walked off stage, found a bathroom stall, locked the door, and sat on the floor for 15 minutes without moving. She wasn't crying. She wasn't celebrating. She was trying to remember who she was before the lights came on. Because the girl you saw on that stage, that wasn't Courtney. That was the mask. A mask she'd been building since she was 7 years old. A mask so perfect, so terrifyingly authentic, that no one, not the judges, not the millions watching at home, realized it was slowly eating her alive. But the mask had a cost, and the bill was coming due sooner than anyone expected. To understand the mask, you have to understand the house. Heselden, County Durham, a post-industrial village where the coal mines died before she was born. The kind of place where kids either leave or disappear into the silence. Courtney Hadwin was born there on July 6, 2004. Her father, Alan, was a drummer, not famous, just a working musician who kept his kit set up in a coal garage because the house was too small. By age 7, Courtney couldn't hold a conversation with a cashier. The school flagged her for selective mutism. Not shyness, a diagnosis. Her throat would literally close when strangers looked at her. But alone in her bedroom, with headphones on, she became other people. She discovered Otis Redding through a YouTube autoplay at age 9. Then Janis Joplin. Then James Brown. She didn't just learn their songs. She studied their faces. The way Joplin's jaw unhinged when she screamed. The way Brown's knees buckled before he hit a high note. Courtney practiced these faces in the mirror for hours. Not to perform. To escape. There was one secret her parents begged her to keep hidden. At age 13, a local producer saw her sing in a church hall. He offered to manage her. He said the magic word, London. But he also gave her a piece of advice that would become a curse. He said, don't talk, just sing. The mystery is the money. So she stopped talking. To everyone, teachers, classmates, even her own grandparents started noticing she only communicated through song lyrics. She wasn't being dramatic. She was being strategic. The silence made the explosion louder. The hoodie made the transformation more shocking. And when the AGT casting director called in early 2018, her father almost hung up. He looked at his daughter, the one who couldn't order her own food at a restaurant, and asked if she really wanted to stand in front of Simon Cowell. Courtney didn't answer with words. She walked the garage, turned on the space heater, and sang Hard to Handle to a wall of peeling paint. Her father made the call the next morning. He had no idea he was sending his daughter into a machine designed to eat exactly what made her special. The golden buzzer is not a gift. It is a trap door painted gold. Within 72 hours of that audition, Courtney Hadwin's phone didn't stop vibrating. Psycho Music called first Simon Cowell's label. then Columbia, then 3 management companies offering 7-figure advances. Her father, a drummer from a coal garage in Heselden, was suddenly negotiating with lawyers who billed more per hour than he made in a month. By October 2018, Courtney was in Los Angeles, recording studios with couches that cost more than her childhood home, producers who spoke in acronyms, a schedule that started at 6 a.m. and ended when her voice cracked. Here's what they didn't tell her. The songs were not hers. A team of writers in their 40s wrote lyrics about rebellion and being wild. They handed her lines like, "I don't care what they say," and asked her to scream them. But Courtney had never said those words in her life. She cared deeply what people said. That was the whole problem. One producer pulled her father aside after a 6-hour session. He said, "She won't look me in the eye. Is she on something?" Her father said, "She's 14. But the machine kept grinding. A single was scheduled, a music video, a tour opening for a boy band she'd never listened to. The mask was no longer something she put on for 3 minutes. It was becoming a 24-hour job. Then came the clause, buried on page 37 of her management contract in size 10 font. Artist agrees to make themselves available for promotional appearances, interviews, and public engagements at the sole discretion of management. Sounds standard. It wasn't, because public engagements meant talk shows where hosts expected the screaming girl, not the mute one. It meant red carpets where photographers yelled for her to look angry like her stage persona. It meant being asked over and over to become a cartoon of herself. One night in December 2018, after a 14-hour press day in New York, Courtney sat on a hotel bathroom floor and tried to sing, just for herself, just a whisper. Nothing came out, not a note, not a sound, just the hum of the minibar fridge and the realization that the voice had never been hers to begin with. She didn't tell anyone for 3 weeks. If this story is hitting you the way it hit me when I first found it, hit subscribe. We find the stories the world forgets, and we make sure they're never forgotten. Newcastle, October 2019, a homecoming show. This was supposed to be the victory lap. The prodigy returns to the Northeast. A sold-out crowd of 2,000 people who had watched her on television, who told their friends, "She's one of us." Her parents were in the front row. Her old teachers from Heselden were scattered through the balcony. Courtney walked on stage in her signature hoodie. The crowd erupted. Then the music started, and nothing happened. She opened her mouth to sing the first line of her new single, the same mouth that had made the world weep with joy. And what came out was not a growl, not a scream, not even a whisper. It was a dry, airless nothing, like trying to start a car with an empty tank. She stopped, looked at the floor, tried again. Same result. The band kept playing for 12 agonizing seconds before the guitarist signaled to cut. The crowd went from cheering to confused to quiet. That specific silence, the one where 2,000 people stop breathing at once, is louder than any applause. Courtney walked off stage. No bow, no explanation, just the sound of her sneakers on the metal stairs. The diagnosis came 3 days later. A specialist in Manchester. Muscle tension dysphonia. Her vocal cords were physically healthy, but the muscles around them had learned to clamp shut whenever she tried to produce sound under pressure. Not a cold, not damage. Fear, her own body learning to protect her from the things she loved most. The doctor asked, "When did you last sing just for yourself?" Not for a camera, not for a crowd. Courtney thought about it. She couldn't remember. The car ride home from Manchester took 4 hours. Her father drove. Her mother sat in the back. Courtney sat in the passenger seat, staring at the gray motorway, not speaking a single word. Not because she couldn't, because she had nothing left to say. When they pulled into the driveway in Heselden, she got out, walked upstairs, and closed her bedroom door. She stayed there for 72 hours. No singing, no screaming, no headphones. Just the sound of a 15-year-old girl learning that the mask she built to survive had just become her coffin. But here is what no one understood. Not the doctors, not her parents, not the label executives calling to cancel her tour. The voice didn't leave because she was nervous. The voice left because, for the first time in her life, she finally realized who she was supposed to be. And it wasn't who they sold. The pandemic did what no therapist could. March 2020. The world stopped demanding. Tours canceled. Press junkets dissolved. The machine that needed Courtney to be the screaming girl suddenly had no fuel. And for the first time since she was 13 years old, she was just a teenager in a small house with nothing to prove. She didn't touch a microphone for 6 months. Instead, she did something radical. She listened, not to Janis Joplin or Otis Redding, to herself, to the quiet voice that had been buried under layers of production, management, and golden buzzer confetti. In September 2020, without telling her label, she recorded a song on her phone. No studio, no producer, just a guitar and a whisper. She called it the 10%. The lyrics were simple. I gave you 90% of me / you never asked where the rest went. She put it on Spotify herself. No announcement, no music video, just a link on a blank Instagram story. It got 47 streams in the first week. 47. From millions to 47. And she smiled for the first time in 2 years. Because those 47 streams were from people who found her, not people who were fed her, not viewers trapped in an algorithm. Real humans who typed her name into a search bar because they remembered something about her voice that had nothing to do with a golden buzzer. By 2021, the contract was dead. She fired the management, walked away from the 7-figure advances. Psycho Music dissolved as a label that same year, but Courtney had already left the building. She was back in Heselden, recording in her father's cold garage, the same space heater humming in the corner. She released Waste My Time in 2022. No screams, no growls, just a 17-year-old girl admitting she didn't know who she was yet. The production was raw. The vocals cracked in 3 places. A&R executives would have called it unreleasable. It became her most streamed song, not because it was perfect, because it was true. But here is what the streaming numbers don't tell you. Here is the part that still keeps her awake at night. She is recording right now. As you watch this, new songs, new sounds, a voice that finally belongs to her. But you will never hear on the radio. And the reason why changes everything. Most of us will never face a 7-figure record contract, but we all know what it feels like to be asked to be someone else just to survive, to smile when you want to hide, to perform when you're breaking. That's why this story refuses to leave you, because Courtney's war wasn't with fame. It was with the mirror, and that's a war every single one of us has fought. She chose a cottage because it had no mirrors, a small stone building on the North Sea coast, 40 minutes from Heselden. The kind of place where the Wi-Fi drops when the wind picks up, where the only audience is the gulls and the tide. Courtney Hadwin moved there in early 2024. She was 19 years old. No label, no manager, no golden buzzer. Just a microphone, a notebook, and a question she'd been running from since she was 7. Who am I when no one is watching? The answer arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in November. She was sitting on the floor, her favorite spot, because chairs still felt like stages, when her fingers found a chord she'd never played before. Not a soul chord, not a scream chord, something softer, something that didn't belong to Otis Redding or Janis Joplin, or any ghost she'd been chasing. She hit record on her phone and sang one line, just one. I used to be someone else's fire / now I'm learning my own ash. Her voice cracked on the word ash. She left it in. That song is called Mirrorless. You cannot find it on Spotify. You cannot stream it on Apple Music. It exists only on a hard drive in a stone cottage, next to a space heater that reminds her of her father's garage. Because here is the secret she never told anyone, the one her parents begged her to keep hidden, the one the producers never understood. She never loved the fame. She loved the escape of singing, the way her voice could build a wall between her and the world. And when singing became a job, when the wall became a cage, the escape became a trap. Today, Courtney Hadwin sings for exactly one person, herself. Sometimes she posts a clip on Instagram. Sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes she goes 3 weeks without opening her mouth at all. And for the first time in her life, that silence doesn't scare her. The last 10 seconds of Mirrorless are just breathing. No words. No melody. Just the sound of a young woman learning to exist without a mask. Then, just before the track ends, she whispers one word. Enough. Not a scream, not a growl, just a girl in a cottage by the sea, finally home.